Hey everybody, thank you for joining us. Jason and Brian here again, doing a live Q&A. I think this is our 4th or 5th one.
Yep.
We love it, so we're just gonna do it every chance we get. Basically what this is your chance to ask us any questions you might have. It could be about this tank, it could be about your tank, tips, tricks, different methods, anything you got. Put them in the chat. Brian and I are going to try to rapid fire as many answers as we can get to.
Yeah, absolutely. We're super excited. And just to head this off before we get no, Jason is not single.
Sorry. I don't know if that's sorry to Brian or sorry to the audience, but sorry, Brian.
All right. Okay, let's start it up. We've got a couple here from our last one, actually. So, Carson Hutchin, lighting recommendations for a refugium.
Okay.
What do you think, Mr. Not Single?
So I've run a few different lights. Here's what I'll say. I'll give this one a little bit of thought. So if it's a lower nutrient system that you have a refugium running, I love the Tunes Eco Chic lights because they're waterproof, and actually if you submerge them, they'll run cooler and they'll run at a higher wattage. So what I've done is I actually put them at the bottom of my refugium chamber and light from the bottom up.
Interesting.
So those are really cool. Now, if you have a higher demand, then I've been a big fan of the Kessel like H series. Yep. The H80 is probably more than enough for most setups. I like those. Otherwise, any freshwater light will do as well. But
yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's a lot lower requirement than what you're going to need for your coral and things like that. You're not trying to get color. You just want growth. So you're going for that more yellow and red light. Yeah, honestly, the Kessels would be one of my with the bendy arm.
Yeah, exactly. Easy to mount too.
Super easy, and it's just so simple. Yeah.
Yep. There you go. We've got our first live right now. Dylan K says, "How do I decide if I should keep using 2-part or move into calc or a calcium reactor?"
Ooh. Well, first off, I can tell you if you're not a big equipment guy, you don't have a lot of experience, or you're not looking to spend a lot of money, the quick answer to a calcium reactor is don't do that. But if you've been in the hobby for a while and you think you want to try it, you've got a heavy load, and you just can't keep, like if you're doing 2-part. So like if you just can't keep up with the 2-part on the coral growth, then maybe a calcium reactor could work for you. I mean, they're great. It's just more equipment. It's more expensive. Up front anyway, right?
Yeah, I'm what we refer to as an equipment junkie.
Yeah.
So I like to try all types of new stuff. If you're just looking to play around with new equipment, go with the calcium reactor. They're awesome. You're getting your calcium alkalinity. There's magnesium supplements you can put in there, so you get everything, plus trace elements. So if you're ready for a challenge, do some research ahead of time, but by all means, get into a calcium reactor. They're super fun.
And if you're thinking that you need to bolster your calcium input into your tank, I mean, adding caulk is super easy, right? You can just do caulk wasser into your top off or something, and take care of that, and see how that goes. But if you're thinking, hey, yeah, this would be a really cool, if you are a gearhead, or you think this would be really cool, and you got the money to throw at it, get a calcium reactor. They're kind of out of style right now, but they work great.
Yeah, agreed. Next up, we have Sandy Cheeks. Love the name. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the question. How important are skimmers? This is the perfect question for Ryan and myself, because you know what, 10, 12 years ago, I'd have said, you have to have a skimmer. Now, like, I'm a big refugium guy. I basically just rely on refugiums for my nutrient export.
Yeah, I've always looked at, and this I think is just my journey in the hobby, but I've always looked at a protein skimmer as a supplemental piece of filtration. It's supplemental. It really is, right? It is not the primary filter in most systems. Again, if you're heavily, and we've talked about this, gosh, we've done videos on this, but if you've got a heavily stocked fish tank with like a lot of fish, then it may very well be considered one of your primary filtration pieces. But in a reef tank, probably not really. I mean, is it helpful to have one? Sure, especially if you've got a lot of fish and things in there. But for the most part, I've always looked at them as a supplemental, honestly.
Yeah, so important, sure. Required, not at all. But if you don't go with a skimmer, obviously you're gonna need something else. And Brian and I, we talk about this every time we're making videos. We're huge refugium fans. That's honestly the route I would go.
Yeah, anything you can do it, anytime you can do it natural, which I guess technically, if you want to get down to it, a protein skimmer is a natural process. If anybody's been to the beach and you see the waves crashing and you see the foam building up, it's the same thing. But
The kids always like to play in the foam.
in the foam, you're like, get out of there because you know what it's made of.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a natural thing. But at the same time, I don't know if your tank's doesn't have a really heavy bio load. No, it's not necessary.
Yeah, there you go. If you are just joining us, Brian and I wanted to do another live Q&A. Throw your questions in the chat. We're going to get to as many as we can. Again, this is anything. This is about tanks here, your tank, tips, tricks, methods. We'll do our best to answer everything. Eddie Kahn says, hello. So Eddie's got an Aquarium 36, 18, 25, 65-gallon reef ready, has a brace. What lighting?
Okay, Aquarium 36-inch, 18, reef ready with a brace. What would you recommend for light? I'm sorry, I was reading another question. For a mixed reef setup, I mean, there's a lot of good options. Really, there are, and it depends on how far you want to go with mixed reef, right? For me, I'm going to go if I know I'm going to do a mixed reef. I don't want to ever have to go into a store and be like, oh, I can't get that coral because I don't have the right light or I don't have the right setup for it. I don't want to have that problem. If I go and I go, ooh, I want that.
Yep.
I want to get it. So. For me, I would just go all out. I mean, something like the Radians.
Okay.
And you could either go 2 small ones. I think you recommended before.
Yep.
Like go with the XR15s.
Yep.
You could do 2 of those, or you could just do 130. However you want to do it.
All right.
What do you recommend?
I agree with you. So if you're going all out, go with a couple of XR15s. I wouldn't do a 30 because the brace, you're just going to be fighting that the whole time. 2 15s. Otherwise, if like a couple of primes are in your budget, I would do 2 primes. So there's like an option depending on what you're looking to spend, either 2 primes or 2 15s.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different options out there. There's a lot of different things you can use. So if you're on the budget side, you could always try something different.
Yep.
It's going to work fine. Just make sure you're getting something that will accommodate everything you're trying to grow.
Exactly. Patrick Cogley.
Matt,
Thanks, sir. Says, need to figure out how to get Kato to grow in my fuge. They're really good at green hair algae.
Oh, well, yeah. If you're really good at green hair algae, the nice thing is that you've noticed that you're always good at green hair algae.
A lot of us are good at green hair algae.
Yeah, and when you get it, it's like, man, boy, if I could grow everything like I could grow green hair algae. And then you get rid of it, and you're like, yay, and then you figure out that you're good at it again, and then it just keeps coming back. So yeah, it's a giant pain, and you can watch. I think does Thomas do a video on green hair algae?
I believe he does. Yeah.
Check that out. Great tips on there.
I will say that what's probably happening if you're growing green hair algae really well, but not the Kato, is they're competing for nutrients. So the worst part of getting rid of algae, manually remove it. I'm going to say it every time. It's super pain. I've tried to do it without. That's just really the only way. So I'd manually remove it. If you have an adjustable fuge light, crank that up.
Yep. So so make sure that fuge is running. Make sure that Kato's got everything it needs to survive. But as far as your display tank where that hair algae is growing, manual removal is probably one of the best things that you can do. And if it depends on your tank size as well. If you've got a big enough tank, get yourself a rabbit fish, get yourself a tang, that's going to nibble on it. Now, again, I've seen some of I've put tangs in tanks before with hair algae, and they're just like, I don't care.
Yeah, it's really hit or miss.
So rabbit fish usually are pretty good. Algae blennies, you get like a lawnmower blenny or some of those guys, they're usually pretty good. Once it gets so long, though, they tend to kind of lose interest in it. They like the little stuff growing on the rock. So there's other things you do, but honestly, the best thing you can do is manually get in there, use a suction hose, pinch that hair algae, rip it off, and have that suction hose in your hand so it goes through the suction hose and out. And just keep doing that, and eventually the Kato will outcompete it, but you got to fight it.
Exactly. So I'm going to pitch this one over to you because Brian is a livestock expert. Tyler Brooks says, is there any type of tang that can live in a 50-gallon all-in-one? Are there any dwarf or mini tangs? I've heard of the Tomini, but really love yellow tangs. So Brian, give me your best answer that's not going to trigger the tang police.
Well, I'm one of the tang police, so
okay, there you go.
So it's gonna be kind of tough. It really depends. So the thing with the, larger fish, tangs, things like that, if you're wanting those type of fish in your aquarium, it's better to go with length than it is depth. So like a cube tank isn't as good, so say like a 50-gallon cube is not as good for a tang as like a 50 long would be. So keep that in mind, because they want to be able to have that long length to swim back and forth. So whatever, I don't know what kind of AIO you have, but that's going to play into it. There are tangs that don't get as big as others, right? I mean, obviously you don't want to throw like a Flamingi tang in there, because that thing's going to get the size of a small bus. But and honestly, yellows, the zebrastomas, paracanthers, like your hippo tangs, things like that, they are going to be on the smaller side. Coal tangs, mimic tangs, things like that. They're going to typically stay a little bit smaller, but a chevron, one. But you're getting into some pricier stuff there too. So honestly, a 50-gallon AIO, I personally would not. If it's long, sure, you could probably do fine with the yellow tank. If it's a cube or a short tank or it optimizes depth, I just probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the same thing. Knowing there's probably a couple of the tank police in the audience, I wouldn't recommend it, especially for long-term success. Though eventually that fish is gonna outgrow that.
Look,
tank.
if you like the tangs, I mean, honestly, what I usually recommend to people that are really wanting to get tangs or something with those bright, vibrant colors to pop like that, I tell them to start looking at like the dwarf or pygmy angels.
Yep.
Right. If they've got a smaller tank, look at some of the dwarf angels. I mean, lemon peel angel. I mean, there are some beautiful, beautiful angelfish out there that aren't as common. But they're not as expensive usually, but they're also not as common. But they're, God, man, really, really beautiful. There's an EBI angel in this tank that he's my favorite fish in this whole tank. He's just gorgeous. So, yeah. Perfect.
Okay, so again, if you're just joining us, now's the time. We're doing a live Q&A. Ask us any questions you have, and we're just gonna try to start rapid firing some of these.
Yeah, sorry.
Mikado family says, I can run a frag tank without a skimmer? Question mark.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you can. Just keep up on it. You just got to monitor the water quality, and if it starts to go south, do a water change, or just have that regimen that you're following.
Yep. Yeah, especially with no fish. I might throw like a hang-on back filter just to have something with like some biological filtration.
And,
like a filter
and
bed.
mechanical.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But yeah, no.
No, you don't need a skimmer.
Needed. A balding Wookie is back. Thank you for joining us again. I remember the name.
Yep.
Says, just put some corals in my desk mate. Great tank choice. Got one of those. Nitrates are really low or zero. Good way to increase them without letting them get out of control.
I mean, just dose. If you're wanting to control them, just dose. Get some nitrate supplement and go. Brightwell
Neo Nitro is the way I would go, because it's easy to dose, really easy directions.
Yeah, and you know exactly what you're putting in there. I mean, you could always say the easiest thing is, throw some food in there, right? But you're going to get some other things in there, phosphate, stuff like that you may not want as much of. So easiest thing, just dose.
Exactly. Jamal Hicks says, what are the most important tests to have for a fowler?
Most important test to have for a fowler.
Nitrate, phosphate.
Yeah, the nutrient levels are really going to have a big effect on things. Of course, salinity is a big one as well. Fish tend to not like when you shift that around on them too much.
See, I didn't even think of that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, but it's a solid. It's kind of overlooked. When we talk about testing, it's like, because a lot of people don't check their salinity regularly. They just like take it for granted, right? But you need to keep checking on that. So yeah, so keep an eye on that. Other ones, yeah, just the typical pH. pH is also a big one for the fish. So past that, those are probably the big ones, I'd say.
All right. We also have Grant Caldwell says, let's see, most likely culprit for Rhodactis mushroom splitting and melting, bacterial infection, cyano, feeding less to reduce cyano, now bristleworms on the mushroom looking for food.
Yeah, I mean, the bristleworms, those guys are, they're opportunists. So if something's dying, they're just like anything else. They're going to go after it, right? So, in nature, things prey on the weak. So if something's dying, those guys, they're not the culprit, but they're going to come and eat.
Good point. Yep.
So it's tough. That's a tough one. Probably, there's a really good chance it's probably some sort of bacterial infection when they're splitting. Something's causing a problem. If your host colonies or your host isn't seem to be affected, it's just like maybe it's just the splits or the clones. Then yeah, it could be some sort of a bacterial thing you're getting. It's kind of a tough one, but some things you could do, try adding a little iodine or dosing with some iodine to make sure you're you're providing that, it'll help with some of the healing process for some of those corals as they split and stuff like that. So,
yeah, I would agree. So Tyler Brooks is back with the tank question. Says it's a 36-inch long. Would that be considered long?
you know, it's better. It's better than like a cube or something, but 36 inches is still pretty short. If you wanted to try it, again, I would probably try something small like a Cole or a Chevron tang or something like that. Yeah.
At risk of triggering the tank police, I have done it in a 40 breeder, which is also a 36-inch long tank. And I was successful for the, I think, 2.5 years that tank was up before I ended up moving.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all, and again, this is all opinion. And can you do it? Sure. Should you? I don't personally think so, but you can. So there you go.
Sometimes it's hard not to.
Man, yeah, because they are beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a purple tang guy too. I love those guys. So it's tough not to throw one in an aquarium.
Let's see. Here we go. Okay, so we've got a follow-up as well. Vincent B says, following up on the tang question, what about a 60 by 30 by 24? Would those be good for tanks?
Yeah, there you're getting to the right size. You know, a 60-inch tank that you're at 5 foot. That's a reasonable size.
Yep.
So I'd say you're pretty good there. Again, don't get the big ones. Don't get yourself a Naso. Don't get a Vlemingi or a unicorn tang. Any of those guys. But and stay away. I would still stay away from some of the habitually aggressive ones that are really beautiful, like clown tangs, Sohal tangs, stuff like that. But yeah, the Zebrastomas, the yellows, and purples, those guys, hippo tangs, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, those.
Agreed. 60-inch, you're safe.
Yep.
Mason says, is two-part essential? If so, does it depend on the salt you use? Currently using Instant Ocean reef crystals. So it depends on how many coral you have. Here's the deal. At some point, your water changes are not going to keep up, and you're just going to continue diluting the levels. So, like, unless we're doing, it's not really possible, but 100% water change, those levels are just going to slowly creep further and further down. So you're going to want to test calcium and alkalinity. You will eventually hit a point where your water changes don't keep up. If it's a newer tank or a lightly stocked tank with coral, then you might be able to get away with water changes for some time. Was that good?
Yeah, that was actually pretty good. Yeah,
I thought so too.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, usually I'm pretty skeptical, but you pulled that one out. All right, I'm going to go up a little bit here. So Power SDS, so it says best way to get rid of dinos in an established tank, phosphate 0.02 and nitrate is 5. You're sitting pretty good there. I mean, dinos is one of those things. I don't know if anyone has ever had luck, and if they are, they may be delusional with setting up a tank and never seen dinos in it at all. They're just really super common. But again, I'll reference, Thomas did a great video on dinos. Go check that out. He's got a lot of really good tips in there, but a lot of it really is manual removal. There is some chemical warfare you can do there, but I don't want to, there's no reason for me to repeat it all here. Go check out that Thomas video. It's really good.
Yep. Yeah, it's Help, I Wreck My Tank
Help, I Wreck My Tank.
I don't trust anybody more than Thomas to help fix an issue with my tank.
There you go.
So, like Brian said, check it out. What do we have here? Says, sup guys, can a typical canister filter work on a saltwater tank? Advantages / drawbacks?
Yes, it can. We did an entire video on that, actually. So you can go back and watch that. It was one of the this or that's, hang on the backs versus canister filters. And I think we had some pretty good information in there. But absolutely it can. There are pros and cons. Again, touch on a few here. There's maintenance is usually a little bit high. They're a bit noisy, they're bulky, whatever the case may be, right? It kind of depends. So go check that out, though. We go over all those pros and cons and our recommendations. But can it work? Absolutely. If it's something you're familiar with, go for it.
Exactly. We've got a video for that. What I would do is 100% I would use a canister filter, but you need to change it out way more often than I would on my freshwater tank.
Yeah,
so that's the consideration.
And that was always my problem with using them. That's why I never really got into using them, because if they're so easy to neglect.
Yep.
Because most of them are dark or they're not clear, so you can't see how dirty they are on the inside, and it's sort of this, ignorance is bliss scenario. You're like, everything's fine. I'm not going to look at that, and then your tank starts to go south, and you're like, I wonder why, and you pull out, and there's an inch of detritus in the bottom of that thing. So.
Yep. Yeah. So now that there's BRS Fresh, I've molded the two. So in my opinion, like a rimless, long tank with some lily pipes, typically only freshwater, in your saltwater setup with a canister filter and like that frosted background you're used to, like really elegant planted tanks, I'm gonna do that.
Yep, yep, absolutely. Okay, Chris Byer, looks like. Hopefully I said that right. I want to add a power head to my refugium to help tumble Keto, or ketomorph. But all of mine seem too fast. Is there a good small power head option to fit a Trigger 39 Fuge? I don't know much about the Trigger 39 Fuge, but if I was gonna just, I don't know what the size is. You probably know better than I do. You look like you have a suggestion. You're ready.
I'm ready.
I'll let you go because I've got a suggestion in my head, but I want to see.
So before I answer, you asked. You said add a power head. So I'm going to give you what I did. It was right when gyres came out.
There you go.
This is many years ago.
We're on the same page. Yep.
I threw a gyre. Everyone called me crazy because I put like a $300 and some odd power head in my Fuge, but nothing tumbled the Keto better than a gyre because it's the flat.
You got that flat, a wide laminar flow, right? So it's perfect. You set it at the top of your sump as close to the water as you can get without it causing a lot of problems, and just let it flow over the top of that cattle ball, and it's gonna roll it like a champ.
Yeah, you can get the jump gyres. The jump gyres are pretty affordable. That's probably what I don't know if I would go like a cloud gyre or anything like that, but get a jump gyre if you're looking to add a power head. That's the way to go.
Yeah, and they make some of them that are 6 to 8 inches long. They're not too big. It should fit in your sump, but that's the way to go. It's the easiest.
That's a fun one. I haven't thought about that in a long time. Everybody call me crazy.
No. Perfect. That's exactly what popped in my head. So I'm glad you said gyre when you did it. All right.
The Woodsman says, how advanced do you need to be to have those corals behind you?
How advanced do you need to have the corals behind you? Well, that's a varied question. So a lot of these corals, a lot of these are sort of beginner level corals for the most part, but there are a few tougher ones in there. It's really a stability thing. To be able to get to a point where you can just like chuck whatever coral you want in your tank and it be happy. A lot of it's a stability. Sometimes it's a system age thing, because even if your parameters are right, if the tank's really young, you throw something in there too early and it's just not gonna do well, right? So, but the question was actually,
so how advanced do you need to be? That's okay. See, every time we talk about coral or fish, Brian gets all wrapped up.
Yeah.
I like what you said, though,
shiny.
because so to Brian's point, a majority of the corals in this tank are very easy to take care of, and this tank looks intimidating, but it's really not. Like, this is achievable for a majority of aquarists out there.
Yeah, honestly, the hardest part of this tank is probably some of the fish that are in it, because it's got some great, mature, really healthy fish, and that's probably harder than some of the corals that are in here, to be frank. So the big thing is just, do your homework, look at the coral before you go buying, especially impulse purchase, go look, say, oh, this is the kind of coral that I want, then look at what it needs and what it requires, and do you have all that stuff to take care of it. And I'd say, how advanced do you need to be to have those corals behind you? If you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing or at a point where you want to research the creatures you're putting in your tank, then you're not advanced enough yet.
How
about that?
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Easy peasy.
Good job, Brian.
Thanks.
All right, let's go to the next one. Let's see. Let's just keep this rolling. DK says, what parameters do I need to add acans to a new tank?
Again, it's not the parameters. So yeah, there are parameters. There are those like perfect parameters for coral, right? For coral growth, you want your pH to sit around 8.2 to 8.4. You want your alkalinity in that 10 to 12 range or 8 to 12 range, whatever. But it's a stability thing. They can handle a lot. They can handle different ranges, and they'll acclimate to those different ranges, but you need stability. If you throw them in a new system that isn't stable, especially it's a brand new system that's going through that cycling, it's going through those, the ugly phase, and it's, everything's working itself out still, it's just too dynamic for them. They don't like it. Yeah. And we talked about this in another video. For me, the LPS especially, so like ACANs, they're just not as forgiving when something goes wrong, in my opinion. That's what I've had. If like an ACAN, when it starts to recede, and it's hard to pull it back out of that.
I've had the same experience. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
agreed.
it's stability.
Travis says, opinions on largest tank sizes, depth and height wise, where I won't have to jump in to do maintenance. You are a big tank guy, so
I'm a big tank guy. And it's funny because I'm actually a deep tank guy, which is I'm not a tall guy. I'm a short guy. So I used to, my old tanks, I have to get wet all the way up to my shoulder.
The armpit thing is the worst.
Yeah. So 30 inches. 20,
Okay.
20, 26, 30 inches. That's about as tall as you want to go, or deep. I think of depth, aquarium depth, I think this way, and I think
Yeah.
of height or tall this
Yep.
way. So when I think of tall, yeah, like 24 to 30 inches, I guess. It's probably about as tall as you want to go if you don't want to have to like dive in there.
I
But
would agree. This is why I like lagoon style tanks.
yeah, because I've had 36-inch deep tanks or tall tanks, and yeah, I was up to my shoulder in there.
Even just putting coral in.
Yeah, yeah. I've got the viewing glass, and I'm looking through that, and I got half my arm in there.
Doesn't
Yeah,
even
it's a
need to be
pain.
maintenance.
It's a pain. Yeah.
100% on the same page. Jordan M says some acros have great polyp extension, others have virtually none. Very similar light and flow conditions. What should I try to improve polyp extension across the board?
Yeah, sorry, and I was reading another question at the time too. So really, again, with that, it's a stability thing. I apologize.
No,
Yeah.
no,
there's all these questions, and there's so many great questions. It's hard to pick one. So with that, it's really a stability thing, right? So some of those acros are going to be more forgiving. Some species are much more forgiving than others. They're able to withstand some of the neglect or some of the, I wouldn't say neglect, but like parameter swings, changes in its environment better than others will. So like the typical green slimer, right? I mean, you can beat it up in a lot of cases, and it's still going to have really nice polyp extension, right?
Sure.
Others that I've had, like a millipora, for instance, Acropora millipora, it'll have really great polyp extension. If you do something to mess that up, it takes forever for it to recover. So in order for it to recover, though, you have to have that stability. So once that stability is reached and it's staying where it needs to be, you've got all your parameters as they should be for growing SPS. As long as things don't move, that coral should recover. It might take time, but the reason it doesn't have polyp extension is because something happened to it that it didn't like, and it's just not happy. So, try to fix that problem. Make sure there's plenty of flow. Make sure your parameters are where they're supposed to be and they're stable. Then sometimes it's just waiting for them to recover and start growing again.
Yeah, I agree with it. So the indirect flow is a huge piece.
Yep.
I'm a big SPS guy, Zeovid guy. I'm all about like the challenge and everything. Millipore is the way to go because I'm also equally obsessed with like the polyp extension on SPS corals. So I fill my tanks with millipores.
Yep. Yeah, they're beautiful.
Let's keep going. Robert Sherman says, switching about half of my live rock scape in a 73-gallon tank. Any suggestions, things to look for, things to stay away from, ideas for success? I think we talked about this maybe like week 1 or week 2. It's super difficult because if you're like, unless the tank is right there, you're going to have die-off, you're going to have an ammonia spike related to it. What I would probably do to reduce that impact is when you pull the rocks out, if it's possible to if they fit in a 5-gallon bucket, have some salt water in there, shake off some of the, just try to get as much of the impact from an ammonia spike potential off the rock.
Well, this is interesting because he says I'm switching out about half of my live rock scape. So
I wonder if they're pulling out and
switching out and putting like Marco rocks in there or something like that.
That one's even tougher.
Yeah. The good news is you've already got live rock in there and you've got an established reef tank, which makes things a little bit easier. Yeah, I don't know, things to stay away from. I've never personally done that.
I would do this under one circumstance, and that's that I cycled the rock ahead of time for a good amount of time.
Yeah.
Like I would be dosing ammonia, ghost feeding, if you will, like putting food into wherever you have the live rock. I would not add non-established rock to the tank, even if you already have some.
Yeah.
It's going to cause, it's probably going to cause a bacterial bloom, an ammonia spike.
Yeah, it's like adding a bunch of uncured live rock to your tank. Midstream, it's just going to be an issue. But there are some man-made options out there that they have cycled. So check some of those out. But that might be the way to go. I don't know exactly the situation that you're in, but Jordan. Or, sorry, Robert. But, yeah, that's a tough one. Just be careful. Don't go too heavy all at once. You might have some negative effects.
Yep, very likely. Duck Lou says, can the first fish I add to my cycle tank be wrasses and add clownfish after?
Well, I mean, this is another one of those things. Like, we have our opinions and suggestions. You can do whatever you want. I just wouldn't necessarily recommend it all the time. So, in this case, wrasses are generally more finicky than a lot of other fish out there. So if you're gonna add fish to your aquarium right off the bat, the damsel family is always good. Clowns, some gobies, some of them, not all of them, but yeah, I mean it's fine. I mean, a clown's a good solid starter fish because they are really resilient, especially if you go with some ocellaris or even perculas. But they're pretty solid. They're pretty resilient to just about everything you do to them. So yeah, and I'm a very big proponent of waiting till your tank cycles. I'm not a add fish to the tank the day. Can you? Yes. I don't recommend it. But so I'm a very big proponent of waiting till your cycle's done. Give it a month or 2 months before you start adding fish.
Yeah, and so I'm on the impatient side, so I'll give you the perspective of that. If it's day one and you're not getting any ammonia, nitrite, and it looks cycled, and you're 1 day off of that, don't do the RAS thing. What I would do is wait more time. Go back to what I mentioned earlier about ghost feeding. So feed the tank to create more ammonia and keep that cycle going before you add it. Typically not recommended.
Yeah, and RAS are just a finicky fish. I wouldn't add them until much later when you're, I guess, confident that it was going to be okay in there. And then start with an easier one if you're fairly new or something like a 6-line, which we've talked about before. So
sure. A quick reminder, if you're just joining us, we're doing a live Q&A. Brian and I have been shooting some videos today. I think this is our 4th or 5th one. We love doing it. So ask any questions you might have about your tank, our tanks, tips, tricks, methods. You can ask questions about Brian if you want.
Sure, whatever you want.
Yeah, whatever you want. Ask questions about Brian.
Yeah, I'm a long walks to the beach kind of guy. No, not really.
I like the beach too. See, that's why Brian and I get along so well.
It's funny. Actually, I hate sand. Okay, so we're going to go back. I know, it's weird, right? I'm going to go back up the top. So Jay Ackerso, he says, I'm just starting out with saltwater tank. Great, welcome aboard. I'm going to do a fish only to start, but I have a 13.5 gallon fluvial. Start out with what would be the best cleaning crew for that small of a tank? So one of the most important cleaners for a tank of that size is going to be, your pods. So, get some gamerids in there, get some amphipods. So find yourself a nice colony of those. You can go to Algae Barn. There's like Indo-Pacific, whatever it is, sea farms. So there's some other places like that. But get yourself some pods. Get yourself some gamerids. That's a solid start. Those guys will start colonizing. They're producing waste. They're reproducing. They're eating each other, honestly, and so they're actually helping your cycle. And if some of them die, you don't really care.
Brian gives the full answer, even if it's not pretty. They're going to be eating each other.
Yeah, they're going to eat each other. They don't care. Yeah, they're just like, oh look, Jimmy died. I'm going to eat Jimmy now. Yeah, they don't care.
All right, I'm going to take this from you before you go any further. So that's like a less known. Like what I expected you to say was like 3 hermit crabs, snails. We talk about this a lot in the biome series, I believe. Having like the pods and the importance of pods and the diversity of life in the tank.
Yep.
Huge. That 100% agree with you. When I first started, it was like get some hermit crabs, get some snails. Pods is my first.
Yeah, I'm pods. I'm also pro. If you can find them, like mini brittle stars. So baby brittle stars. Sure. Again, bristle worms. I know it's a mixed bag there, but I'm a big worm fan. Lots of worms. Mamma Mia worms, or what we used to call spaghetti worms. There's lots of different things you can put in there that are great to start out that process, because they're going to eat all the food that you put in there to start your ammonia cycle and everything. So they're awesome. Hermit crabs is the next step. Snails I usually wait on until they actually have something to eat. But yeah, that's my recommendation for you.
There you go. Grant Caldwell has a follow-up to the melting shrooms question for you. Started adding Brightwell iodine last week and been dipping in metacoral. Should I treat the tank for a bacterial infection? What product could cyano cause this?
Cyano, probably not, honestly. I mean, it could be irritating them to the point where they're just like, I don't want to live anymore. If there's a lot of it. If there's a little bit, probably not. If you've got a lot to where it's like these red carpets over all the rock, yes, they could be causing that problem. So manually remove that stuff as soon as you can. Again, check out Thomas's video on cyanobacteria. But if you don't, I mean, just a regular old iodine, for some reason the brand is running away from me right now, but it's just
Lugol's.
Lugol's, yeah, some Lugol's solution, yeah. So get some Lugol's solution, drip that in there, follow the instructions. Don't overdo it, thinking that that's going to help because you'll end up killing everything. So, but that's a good start. Yeah, treat the tank water. Iodine's not going to, as long as you're not overdoing it, it's not going to hurt anything else in there.
Agreed. Mason is back. Mason, thanks for watching. Thanks for asking the question. Thanks for asking another question. We got question number 2. How long should you acclimate LPS to new lighting?
As long as it seems like it takes. So go shoot. I mean,
That's
honestly,
it's
a weird answer, right? I know it's like just as long as it takes, whatever. So blanket. I know it was terrible. I apologize, Mason. I'm not trying to discourage you there. So no, put it in your aquarium. Put it in one of the lowest light spots in your aquarium.
Go on.
At first, see how it does, right? And then just you start moving from there. But usually light acclimation to get it from where you're where it was to where you're at. If you're going brighter, a couple weeks usually or something like that. But go slow. Put it. I mean, you can. A lot of these guys like A-cans, you can actually almost put them in the shade in your aquarium and they'll be fine. What are you laughing at?
Long as it takes, Mason.
Long as it takes, Mason. That's it.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Also, it depends on where you got it too.
Yeah.
So say you have radions and the shop had radions and they're approximately the same depth in the water. Just throw in the same spot, or you can even ask your local fish store, what approximate percentage they're running their lights at.
Yeah. What par rating that they're running and they're using. Go with that, yeah, and then try to match that in your aquarium. That's actually a great suggestion.
I know, it is. But also, keep in mind, every time you move the coral, it's got to reacclimate.
Yeah, that's right.
So
that's right.
Yep. Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you, Brian.
Just start low, go high. Don't ever try to throw it into bright light. You'll kill it.
There you go. Jonathan Tucker says, hey guys, do you feel heavy in, heavy out method is wasteful? I have tons of filtration, sock skimmer, media, biopellet reactor, all running due to my heavy feeding hand wasteful.
It's a few. I mean, I've done the same thing. I'll be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
I have put a larger skimmer on an aquarium and more macroalgae or whatever in an aquarium because I know I'm going to overfeed it because I just like to watch my fish eat. And then I like to feed them, like to watch them go nuts and everything. And then people come over and they're like, oh, where's that fish that you just got? You're like, oh, he hides in the rock. Here, I can bring him out. You throw a little food in there to get him to come out. Yeah, so I totally get it. Is it wasteful? I don't know. Can you afford to do it? If you can afford to do it, I guess no.
I like it. So I like it for the same reason you do. I like fat, healthy looking fish. So I'm going to have whatever filtration, whether it's a Fuge. I always just like Fuge is my go-to.
Yeah.
But a Fuge skimmer, biopellet reactor like you're doing.
Whatever.
I'm going to beef up my filtration, feed as much as my fish can eat so I have healthy fish.
Yeah, and if it takes, I've had fish before where you have to feed them like a pinch and they may grab 1 or 2 pieces of it and you're like, well, I guess I'm going to do that 6 times a day.
Because or
that's
throw
all
an
they
auto
get.
feeder on
it is
and
what
have
it
it
is.
every hour.
It is what it is. So if that's what you want, just go for it, man. I don't think it's wasteful.
I like it.
You do you.
Mile High Reefer says, should I have my protein skimmer on during cycling? I'm on day 2 and so cloudy doing fishless.
You don't need to.
Agreed.
You don't need to.
You don't need to, but here's why I would. I would because during that time, it's going to break in, so you don't have to go through the break-in when you actually need it.
Yeah, and you'll start to tell too when you start to get some nutrient buildup in your tank because you'll start to see some skimmate coming out and all that. So you can. Necessary? No. Like we've talked about, you don't even need to have a protein skimmer, but you can run it. Cuts down on that break-in time.
Exactly. Vincent, we'll go with Vincent P. Vincent, sorry, I can't pronounce your last name. Brian will make fun of me.
I love what I got here though.
Question for Tang Master Brian. There you go. Shout out to Vincent. Thanks for watching. Thanks for asking the question. Thanks for calling out.
You're
Brian
the man, Vincent.
Says, if I have a sailfin tang, will I be getting him, hold on. If I have a sailfin tang and will be getting him a larger tank this spring, I also want to add a second tang like a Scopus. Thoughts?
Is this, I don't know what your size tank is, Vince. Is this the guy from earlier too? Oh yeah, 60. So you're gonna get a bigger tank. I mean, so as long as you're gonna upgrade and you feel confident that you can move those fish from one aquarium to the other without causing them undue stress and potentially killing them, which the zebrasomas are usually pretty good. With the exception, again, purple tanks for some reason are always really finicky. But yeah, go for it. I think you'll be okay. I mean, sail fins, they do get big. I mean, they get massive, but you get one of those little small, really, I mean, they're beautiful when they're small. I'm a big fan of the sail fins and the voliferum and what's the other one?
Kind of fell off.
Yeah, I did there. Yeah, sorry.
Maybe lost his train of
Sorry,
thought.
I'm thinking about all the different Desjardini. That is Desjardini tanks. But yeah, so they're beautiful. I think you can handle it. Yeah, I think a sailfin and a scopus in there, probably pretty good. You probably going to want to put them in close to the same time so they get used to each other. If you put one in, like that sailfin, you put him in first, then the scopus later, he's probably not going to appreciate that scopus showing up.
Yes. Josh says, just finished a nano tank build. Same tank. I used to have a mixed reef in. This time they're going with a bubble tip anemone and clownfish tank. Any difference in care for a rose bubble tip versus a rainbow? Nope. So the difference, main difference you're going to run into is your corals don't move, your anemones will. So just make sure you're prepared with like power head guards, or just like keeping an eye for walking so they don't go into a power head. Otherwise, no. If you've successfully kept coral, you should be set for some anemones.
Yeah, just again, be ready, reduce your flow and all that stuff. Let him settle in. As much as you can reduce the flow when you add him in so that he doesn't roll around too much is optimal. Let him find a good place to settle down, and then you can start shifting things back to normal.
Patrick Cogley says, I have a huge, all caps, Mandarin. I dose pods every month from Algae Barn. Been doing this for 3 years now. Is this overkill?
Nope.
Nope. Agreed.
Nope. I mean, I don't know what size tank you've got. If you've got plenty of hiding places, they're probably reproducing on their own anyway, but just to make sure that Mandarin's doing okay, yeah, there's nothing wrong with adding some more in there on a regular basis.
Yeah, you'd be surprised at how many pods a Mandarin will eat. Like, it will demolish even a medium to large size tank worth of pods in that amount of time. I would personally keep doing it.
Yeah, and if you've got a refugium or you've got a sump, throw some surface area in there for the pods to reproduce in. You know, whatever, it can be whatever you want. They make those little pod hotels. I used to take like half-inch PVC pipe, just cut it into a bunch of little sections and just pile it in there, or just like bundle it together and then just stick it in there like a pile of sticks, and they love that stuff. So anything you can do to give them more space to reproduce and grow.
Yeah. Otherwise, I would keep at it for sure.
Yeah, keep at it. And there's other sources out there for pods. And Gamaris and all that stuff, but Algae Barn's a good source, so nice job.
All right, I'm gonna let you pick one because I feel like I'm taking them all.
Oh, okay, great. Let's see. Duke Lou again here. Can I add pods and feed Fido while cycling, or should I wait until after the cycle is finished? Want to get ahead of the ugly stages. Hey, go for it. Add pods and feed Fido. I don't necessarily know why you'd feed Fido.
I wouldn't bother with the Fido, just be a waste of money.
Yeah, there's really no point there, but start throwing the pods in there. I mean, honestly, it's like for me, day 2, day 1, day 2, you throw pods in there. Some of them are going to survive. They're going to reproduce really quickly, and you can throw some food in there. They'll eat that. It's great. Yeah, pods are probably one of the earliest things I would ever recommend adding to your tank. There you go.
The Spiritual Reefer says, question for both. What is your favorite invertebrate?
Ooh, what is my favorite invertebrate? That's tough. You're going to have to give me a second. You go
That's
first.
fine. All right, I like tuxedo urchins, and I'm going to give you like a real weird reason why. Is that, so they are good at maintaining the tank, et cetera, all that stuff. But I like them because they like grab stuff and just carry it around the tank. So that's kind of cool. Like, I've seen people put little toy cowboy hats on their urchins. And
they just walk, or they just like crawl around.
Yeah,
with
so
them
I don't know.
on it.
They're really entertaining to me.
Sure.
So pin, cushion, or tuxedo.
Globe, tuxedo,
urchin.
globe, whatever you want to call them. Yeah.
Yep,
they're aquaculture now and totally available.
Exactly.
Which is super, super cool.
Yep. So they're efficient algae eaters. They're fun to watch.
Yep. Urchins are super cool. Pencil urchins are super, super cool, but they're also not aquacultured, and a lot of times they don't survive very well, but they're really cool looking. But clams are great, and they're filter feed, and they're really good, water cleaners for you. So that's a tough question, man. I like a lot of them, but I'm also a big ophiuroid guy. So I'm like big brittle stars, serpent stars, basket stars. That's probably one of my favorite ones.
Basket stars. Is that your final answer?
Basket stars. Yeah, I'm gonna go with basket stars. Don't get one for your
Final
aquarium.
answer.
That's a bad idea. They don't do well in aquariums, but they
Oh,
are
great.
super.
Okay, even better.
But they're super cool. Yeah. So all right.
Brian's favorite. None of you should
You should ever get. Yeah,
all right. Well,
you
great.
shouldn't do that.
Snow Chaser Z says, first reef tank, currently losing all of my fish to velvet. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Most of us have been there. Quarantine lesson learned. Have a diamond goby and a 120 that looks likely to survive and impossible to catch. Now what?
Go for it. I mean, so the diamond goby, I wouldn't even try to catch them. Just leave them in there. Try to treat with some stuff. And is this a mixed reef? or is it a reef tank, fish only? If it's fish only, you can start treating. I'm guessing because you're still having the problem that it's not fish only.
Yeah, probably.
That it's probably a mixed reef. Let it rest, right? Let that diamond go. And remember, you're never going to get rid of it completely. So whatever problem is in there, it's likely going to stick around. So the goal is to try to make sure that you're not bringing anything else in, or you're not stressing out your fish completely once they're in there. There are some things that you can do to kill those protozoa, but get a UV filter or on there, UV sterilizer on there, that could help. But really, at this point, as hard as it is, be patient.
Yep.
Make sure that let that diamond go be living there by himself for a while. Make sure he's good and healthy. Then start trying again 1 or 2 fish at a time. Nothing heavy, nothing big, and get from a reputable source.
Exactly. I like the UV thing you called out. It's probably, again, not going to do a lot right now, but for preventing a situation which now that you've been through it, know how awful it is to go through, a UV sterilizer to help prevent that in the future.
Yeah. I can tell you the worst thing you could do is try to add more fish right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Worst thing you can do. Yeah. Even if that diamond goby looks like he's fine a week from now, don't add more fish.
I didn't know if that was part of it or not. The Johnny220 says, where is Ryan? I'm guessing he's over it. Confirmed Ryan is not over it. Actually, Ryan and I did like 3 or 4 lives over Black Friday. One of my favorite things to do. And then Ryan is actually has started a new channel, Serious Reefs. So we did, Ryan and myself did an interview, I think in November.
It was right after Black Friday.
Was it? Yeah. So you can check that out on the BRStv YouTube channel, where I asked Ryan a bunch of questions about starting his journey in Serious Reefs. And you can go check out Serious Reefs on YouTube and see what he's doing.
Yeah, but he's definitely not over it. He's a passionate guy when it comes to reefing. So yeah.
Humble Blue Collar says, are you still considered an experienced reefer after a 10-year hiatus?
Sure. I mean, I think you are an experienced reefer, but you've got a knowledge gap there because I can tell you a lot of things have changed in 10 years. And I've taken breaks here and there, and yeah, every time I come back, if I sort of like detach completely for a little while, come back, I'm like, whoa, what happened? So there's always things changing. So just do your homework, see what other people are doing, see what's changed about it. But if you were really successful back in the day with what you were doing, you'll still be really successful today with what you did then.
Yeah, if anything, it's just an easier path now.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for getting the Brian, the Tang Master, involved as well.
I like it.
This has been super fun. I love doing these. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.